Hello and welcome to another Time Travel Fiction Tuesday. There's been a gap. Listen, here's the deal. These things take a long time. I could be doing other stuff. I could be writing new books. If people would like me to carry on with this, please like, comment, share. If you can let some other people know about this so it gets more of an audience, obviously I will do my best to keep going. If I'm doing this for 3 people, it's hard to justify. So much as I love doing it, I love sharing stories with you, it is getting harder to find the time. So that would be lovely if we could have a bit of help. That would be just amazing. But also liking and commenting, those things are great too. It's just nice to get feedback. So we are reading Trespass by Michael Campling, chapter 28, 3500 BC. Burlick climbed as fast as he could. I'm making too much noise, he thought. The old man will know I'm coming. But he couldn't help it. The footholds were too narrow, too steep, too hard to see in the fading light. At last he saw the top of the steps just above him. He was almost there. He hesitated, breathing hard. Had Wiccan heard him? Would the old man be lying in wait? He leaned back from the rock face as far as he dared and craned his neck to scan along the rim of the ledge above him. There was no sign of Wiccan, but that meant nothing. Burlick could not see onto the ledge itself. He listened. At first there was nothing, but then Wiccan's wavering voice echoed through the empty space of the pit. Burlick's flesh crawled. Who's he talking to? He muttered. The shades, he thought. He swallowed, ran a hand over his face. It would soon be dark. He was alone and clinging to a rock face. There was nowhere to hide. I should have brought Tellen, he thought. I should have listened to him. But it was too late for that. He was here now, and he'd come for the sake of his poor wife. Skimrian, he whispered, and he scowled. She'd lost her spirit because of Wiccan. She wouldn't care for their son because of Wiccan. The baby would most likely die because of Wiccan. No more watching and waiting. He would end this now. There was no one to stop him, no one to bear witness. He placed his foot on the next step and froze. The screech of pain ran through Burlick to the bone, chilled his heart, the tortured, rasping shriek of a dying man. His nerves snapped. He launched himself upwards, springing from the steps onto the ledge. He landed, poised, his knife ready in his hand, and there he saw Wiccan. The old man's thin body was slumped, twisted sideways on the ground next to a flat, dark stone. Burlick caught his breath. A trap? He scanned the ledge. They were alone. Slowly holding his knife in front of him, Burlick moved closer to where Wiccan lay. He stood over the old man and shook his head. Wiccan's arms were wrapped tight around his chest, his face locked in a grimace. The corners of his mouth still twitched. He was alive. Burlick smiled grimly. Just an old man, he said, helpless. Is this a sign? He thought. Have the shades delivered Wiccan to me? One cut, and that's all it would take. One swift stroke of his knife across Wiccan's throat, and it would be done. Not murder, but mercy. Burlick shifted his grip on the knife's handle and took a step closer. Chapter 29, 2010. I paused at the bottom of the steps. No sign of my phone. So what now? I said. I'll start near the steps, I thought, and work my way back toward the car. There was a clump of bracken to my right. I'd start there. I pictured my phone sliding from my pocket as I'd started to climb, sinking among the green fronds without a sound. I picked my way through the bracken, pushing it aside, peering into the shady spaces between the crowded stems. Something snagged the right leg of my jeans. I took a step back and tugged my leg free. It worked, but something scratched across my ankle. Jesus, I hissed. I clamped my hand over the pain. My sock was wet. I took my hand away, saw the tinge of red on my fingers. Blood. I don't want to look, I breathed. I really don't want to look. But I had to. I squatted down, winced as I pulled the sock away from my skin. Just above my ankle, a jagged gash traced through the flesh. I couldn't tell how deep it was. There was too much blood. I watched as it welled out, trickled away. It was like I was watching it on TV. It wasn't my leg. I shook my head. It's okay, I muttered. It looks worse than it is. It looks worse than it is. I fumbled in my pockets, found a tissue, crumpled but clean. I half remembered something from a first aid video we'd had. I pushed the torn skin back together, laid the tissue over the wound and pressed as hard as I could bear. I waited for the bleeding to stop. What the hell had done that to me? With my free hand I parted the fronds of bracken and gasped. A tangled-toothed mass of razor wire, twisted into a spiteful ball of vicious blades. It snaked among the feathery fronds of bracken that must have grown up through the wire. You'd never see it, I thought, until it was too late. I rubbed my hand over my face and blew out a deep breath. It was pure dumb luck I'd been walking so slowly. I released the pressure on my ankle. The tissue was soaked in blood, but had I stopped bleeding? I daren't look under the tissue in case that pulled the wound open again. I pulled my sock up to hold the tissue in place and stood up. My ankle complained when I put my weight on it, but it was bearable. I really have to get out of this place, I said. But what about my phone? Should I carry on looking for it? I hadn't had it long, and it was a good one too, top of the range. I chewed my lip and remembered. Dad, I'd said, you know, my phone, it doesn't charge up properly anymore. It's useless. You need a phone, he'd said. Yeah, but Mum says I can't have a new one. She says I have to make do with her old one. We'll see about that, he said. Might as well spend it before the lawyers get their hands on it. Sure enough, the next day we'd gone shopping for the very best phone money could buy. But he paid with a credit card, and I was there when Mum opened the bill. She didn't say anything. She just got very tight-lipped and screwed her eyes shut, like someone trying very hard to remember something. These days, I didn't even like to ask for dinner money. I had to find that phone. I couldn't just give up. Maybe near the car, I muttered. But I'd only taken a couple of steps when I heard it. A faint metallic sound, scrabbling and scraping like some sort of animal. I thought of Callie and her friends, but this noise wasn't coming from above. I tilted my head, tuned in to the sound. It was echoing across the quarry floor. It came from the fence, the one I'd fallen from. Something was trying to get into the quarry. Was it a dog? The man who'd shouted at me, he'd had a dog. He couldn't still be out there, could he? I looked back to the steps in the rock face. He'd never catch me up there. But could I climb them with my weakened ankle? There wasn't time. A screech of scraping metal. I ducked down into the bracken, pushing myself sideways to avoid the deadly razor wire. Just in time. Voices. Hard, jeering voices. I wasn't alone. Chapter 30, 3500 BC. Berlick had killed men before. In hard winters and dry summers, there were always men to be dealt with. Men in a frenzy of hunger who would steal for their starving families. Men who slunk through the night with knives ready to quietly slit throats. Men who roared and charged, hurling spears, crushing skulls with their axes. Berlick had fought for survival, fought for his family, his village. Without hesitating, without thinking, he had slashed, stabbed, beaten men to death with his bare hands. But he'd never killed a man like this. Now his enemy was completely helpless. Berlick squeezed his fingers around the handle of his knife, held it ready. He bent over Wickham's twisted body, reached forward. He looked for the place where the blood flowed fastest in Wickham's scrawny neck. His hand shook as the blade's edge touched the grimy skin. Berlick clenched his teeth. He pressed the blade harder against the old man's flesh, tensed the muscles in his arm. In one swift stroke the blade would bite, rip deep into the neck and throat. Now, but Wickham stirred. His mouth fell open, and he let out a low, croaking, rattling moan. Berlick hesitated. "He's dying," he said. He pulled the knife away from the old man, dropped it on the ground. He's dying. His legs were suddenly weak, unsteady. A chill ran through his body. He shook his head. It's not right, he said. Let him go. He had to respect the dying and let their shade pass. It was their way. The old man's face was grey. His breathing was shallow, strained. It would not be long. It is better this way, Berlick thought. No one can blame me for this. I can go back to the village and all will be well. He knelt at Wiccan's side, picked up his knife and returned it to his belt. He would do his duty. He scooped up Wiccan's feeble frame and lifted him as easily as he might have lifted a child. He carried him to the back of the ledge and laid him gently down on a patch of grass. Berlick sat down beside him. The old man's expression softened a little. He was near the end. Berlick would not have to wait long. Berlick tried to remember the sacred words. He spoke gently. Wiccan, your shade is free now. Let it go peacefully into the shade world. Berlick stood and looked to the sky. He raised his voice. The shade of Wiccan is done with this world. It must not linger here to trouble the living. Let his shade journey to the next world where it belongs. Let its passing be swift and peaceful. Berlick could think of nothing more to say. He hadn't got the words quite right, but it was the closest he could get. He sighed and sat down heavily on the ground next to Wiccan's body. He could no longer hear the sound of breathing. Wiccan's body lay completely still. His face showed no sign of life. Wiccan was dead. Berlick leaned back against the slope, exhausted. He closed his eyes. It was over. Skimrian, he whispered, I can come back to you. Berlick needed his home now. He needed a fire and a hot meal. He needed to sleep. He yawned. He could almost fall asleep where he sat. So tired. But he mustn't fall asleep. He must get up and he must go somewhere and is it you? The croaking, tormented voice ripped into his sleep. His eyes flew open. His body tensed, his heart racing. A dream. That was all. Just a dream, wasn't it? But no, something touched his arm. He looked down to see gnarled grey fingers clawing at him, gripping his arm. Slowly, Berlick turned his head toward Wickham. No, Berlick breathed. No, you're dead, But Wickham's eyes were open and they blazed as the old man stared at Berlick, boring into his soul. Is it you? Wickham demanded, his voice dry, rasping in his throat. Berlick couldn't move, couldn't look away. Wickham's shade had come to claim him. It had him in its grip. It had him, and it would take him to the world of the dead, and it would never let him go. Never. Berlick opened his mouth, and he screamed. And I am going to stop there because that's quite a bit. Quite hard on the old voice sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you would like me to keep going, if you want to find out what happens to young Jake and who's coming into the quarry and what's going to happen to poor old Berlick with Wiccan. Is he dead? Is it his shade? Is it what? So, yeah. And if you want to read ahead or read along, you can look out for Trespass. There are 3 Darkening Stone books. There's also a prequel, which you can get when you go to authormichaelcampling.com, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get Breaking Ground, which is a prequel. And you can be read before or after this book. It doesn't kind of matter because it shifts in time anyway. But, you know, it's free and it's quite short. It's very short, actually. But it's the same flavour and it has some of the same characters, including Berlick and the young character called Jake and so on. Get to learn a bit more about the background of the Darkening Stone as well. Not everything, because it's very mysterious, but you do get a bit more. It's actually quite good to read it after this, funnily enough, and to go back once you've understood this book and then to go back. But either way, I hope you enjoy listening and watching. Thank you so much. I will try to keep these going and I will try to keep some of the other readings going, but we'll see how we go. But if you can share it, if you think somebody else might like it and you can share this with them, that would be fantastic. And I'd be very grateful. Really appreciate support. But you're here and I appreciate that. So thank you so much. Take care. Happy reading and bye for now. See you next time.